OTAs. Yep, another acronym in the world of the National Football League. But for the NFL fans, it's a chance to get excited. That means the season's that much closer, and it's also a chance to really take the first real look at your team in 2025. And we're going to do exactly that, and you're also going to meet someone that you need to know about. But it's all brought to you on this edition of Defending the Kingdom by Ticketmaster.
Holthus keeps it on an RPO at the 5, gets a lead block, he goes into the end zone near side, touchdown, Kansas City!
Hi everyone, I'm Mitch Holthus, voice of the Chiefs, along with senior team reporter Matt McMullen. This is the time where you get reacquainted with the guys. You can see them, deal with them, talk to the new guys, but there's some excitement. Kind of first day of school, or at least summer school.
Some excitement, huh? I think for you and me, it's like
excited.
We've been looking forward to this for weeks. It's so much fun because we can finally turn the page to next year. And with Phase 3, which is what we're in now, and OTAs, why that's important is because finally, for the first time since the Super Bowl, the guys can go out there and do offensive versus defensive football, like 11 on 11, 7 on 7. Football. Now, no pads, no hitting. There's not like live contact going on. But still, again, for the first time during the entire offseason training program here at the facility, the guys can play offense versus defense football. And that's a lot of fun because finally we can see kind of what does our team look like at this point, and they can lay the foundation for what's to come over the next several weeks and months.
You can also see what the coaches are thinking, at least a template to get things revved up. And we know next is mini camp after this and then training camp. But again, it's one of the reasons the Chiefs have been able to win consistently now going into a 13th year with Andy Reid in a league which is set up to do just the opposite. It's what they do when you're not watching or even thinking about it with the offseason training activities, and especially when you get to Phase 3 and can work offense on defense. Now, in this episode 2, you and I are especially excited not only for OTA's Phase 3, but we're excited because you're going to meet someone. Maybe you know about him, but you probably don't. But you should, and you will. Because to me, we'll get into Chris Shea, but really one of the more fascinating guys in the National Football League, and he's ours.
Yeah, and Brett Veach is at the top. He's our general manager, and, of course, Coach Reid right there with him, who's helping guide this whole ship. But Brett Veach has so many amazing people that work in this front office that no one really knows about unless you're super in the weeds, and they do so much and have had such an impact on one of the greatest runs for any professional team in sports history. And Chris Shea gave us about 20 minutes of his time. We'll get to it here in a little bit. It's just fascinating. Like, if you're driving around right now and you're a super football nerd, brace yourself for learning all about how this guy thinks, because his brain and the way that he thinks, that kind of leads the way in a lot of ways for what we're doing in terms of like contract negotiations, managing the salary cap, like trade compensation, like all that little stuff. Chris Shea is one of the guys leading the charge in all of that. So I find it fascinating.
How do you win when you draft last waiver claim, hardest schedule, and you're going to get a little bit of that, a lot of that with Chris Shea. This is one of those episodes, I think, that you'll want to copy and paste this link. You're going to want to share this link because sometimes at this time of year, some people will kind of phase out of being kingdom defenders. Not many, but some. But this is one you do not want to miss. But before we get into all that and reaction of what we've seen early on in OTA's Phase 3, why not go around the world?
I've got 6 for you today.
Ooh, nice.
I feel like I've had 6
Brian Cook.
every single week, and it's always been for Brian Cook.
Always Brian Cook.
Love Brian Cook. Let's see what Brian Cook can do. All right, so Ellie and I went to dinner at this place called West Side Local over on the West Side area. It's north of Southwest Boulevard.
Makes sense that West Side Local would
I knew
be
you were
on the
going to
West
say
Side.
that.
Sorry.
Yeah,
It's
West Side Local located in the West Side.
Oh.
Have you ever been over there before? It's like, so it's
No.
north of Southwest Boulevard, and it's right under 35.
Okay.
Yeah, I had never been over there before. I had no idea this area existed. It was super cool.
What was it called? West Side Diner?
West Side Local.
Local.
Yeah, West Side Local.
Oh, there's another
Not to be confused with North Side Local or South Side Local. Anyway, I say
Like Kauffman
this
Center, kind of?
sorta.
Sorta.
So it's sort of crossroady. It's if you go under the highway. So
Okay.
you know where like the roastery is, like over
Yeah.
there. It's kind of that general area.
Okay.
Anyway, I say all this to to bring up Mason because I met Mason there. We were having dinner, and Mason came over and said hi. And I had never been there before, so I asked him what to get, and he recommended the Brussels sprouts. Now, something about me is I hate Brussels sprouts.
Yeah,
I hate them.
I'm right there with you.
Hate
on that.
them.
Yeah.
But he recommended them. And Elliot was like, he recommended it. We should try it. We tried them.
You asked, he answered. You got to do it.
I got to do it. And they were fantastic.
Wow.
They were wonderful. So I tried a new thing for you, Mason, and they were great Brussels sprouts. They did something to them. Like they were like fried. There was like some kind of like, I don't know, thing on them, but they were delicious. So trying new things. Shout out to you, Mason. Thanks for saying hi. I met Dustin at the Salvation Army event I worked at last week. I got to host their civic breakfast here at the stadium. It was super, super cool. Salvation Army obviously does some incredible things for our community and for the country as a whole and the world. Nazi Johnson was there, interviewed Nazi in front of the whole group, and Nazi was incredible. I think Nazi's in store for a big year. He's in the right place mentally. He was just awesome to talk to, both on stage and privately. So excited for Nazi, but also said hi to Dustin. So Dustin, thanks for saying hi. We heard from Payam. I think that's how you pronounce it. He just moved to Dubai and will work hard to establish Chiefs Kingdom in the UAE. So there's
Perfect.
that. Yep. Shout out to him. Shout out to
Do we have
Marcelo.
chapters in the UAE?
I don't know. I'm sure we've heard from someone. We need to have this
gotta
more
be.
like uniform. Like we need to have an idea. He did say that he's going to find like barbecue joints in the UAE, which I don't know if those exist. Maybe they do. And he's going to insist that they fly a Chiefs Kingdom flag. So,
Why do I feel like an NFL game will be in Dubai someday?
well, it's part of the global marketing program
knew
where
that.
the UAE is one of the countries. I forget who has them. But anyway, it's going to happen eventually. So
Yep.
you ever think that being voice of the Chiefs would lead you to multiple continents and all that?
No.
Because we're going
But
to
we're going to South
Germany,
America
going to South
now.
America. Like, yeah. Anyway, maybe one day it'll be Chiefs and Chargers on Mars. You know. Shout out to Marcelo. Ironically enough, he's in Brazil and will be at the game on September 5th. We'll see you then, Marcelo. We heard from Charles in Oklahoma City, aka Chiefs Heartland, as he called it.
Ooh.
Big week for Charles in Oklahoma City with the Thunder going to the NBA Finals.
So he's annexed him from the Cowboys. If that's
Mm-hmm.
the center of the universe of Chiefs Kingdom,
Maybe. Well, you know,
we've expanded our borders, and that's definitely cowboy country. So
do you remember Thomas Chapman?
yes,
So Thomas used to work on our PR office. He now
Great
works
dude.
for NFL Online Media Guide. One of my best friends in the world. He's incredible. and
Oklahoma
a wealth
State
of
Cowboy,
knowledge.
am I re-
Yeah,
yeah, I think
Oklahoma
so,
State. He lives in Oklahoma City now, though. That's where he's from originally.
Okay.
Nearby to Norman. Actually, his wife works for the Sooners, which is a point of contention. But regardless, I asked him, like, is there like Chiefs fandom in Oklahoma City? And he said, absolutely. So there you go. We are trying to expand on the Cowboy territory, which I'm all for.
Can you imagine Bedlam every day of your marriage?
No, I couldn't.
I can't either.
No, I could not. Lastly, shout out to Luke. He's in Orange City, Iowa.
Yes.
Do you know where that is?
Yes, it's home of the Northwestern. It's Northwestern College of Iowa, but it just goes by Northwestern, like Northwestern University in Evanston, but it's Northwestern Iowa.
Okay.
And up in that part of the country, Sioux Center, I think, has Dordt College. It's like 10 miles away. Orange City's had. I'll just tell you a story. I spoke in Sioux Center one day, and I'm like, Iowa's Chiefs here and Vikings here and Packers here, except there's one pinprick that is the Dolphins.
Yeah, you told me about this.
Yeah, Vern Den Herter of the undefeated Dolphins. I'm speaking that day, and I go, hey, it's you guys like Vern Den Herter, and he's at the back of the room going, I'm Vern Den Herter. Well, just very close to that is Orange City.
Okay.
Yeah,
So where does Orange City fall on the grid of the different fandoms in Iowa?
right on the line.
Okay.
Of red and gold. If you tip it just 5 degrees to the left,
Okay.
5 degrees to the right, you're in Skull Country.
All right. Well,
Okay, right there. It's right at the demarcation line.
so Luke mentioned something to me that might help us kind of defend that territory.
Okay.
Where Luke is good friends with a guy named Brady, and Brady played college football at the University of South Dakota with Jack Cochran.
Yotes.
Jack Cochran, baby.
Yeah.
Representing the Chiefs well, and South Dakota well, and I guess Iowa well. Orange City. Who would have thought? So anyway, that's all I got today. But
A lot
Jack
of
Cochran.
Dutch heritage there. A lot of Dutch heritage.
Orange
in it.
City makes sense, right?
Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So, up in northwest Iowa, great people up there. Lamar's not far. Ice cream capital of the world.
Really?
Yeah, Sioux City's not far. That's home of Morningside College.
Mm-hmm.
But, Dordt College and Northwestern College has a great athletic tradition, actually, in NAI.
And the Sioux City Airport is like named after Joe Foss or somebody? Someone that has something to do with the AFL. I forget what it is. Anyway,
The
I
original.
digress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Hey,
Yeah. Next week we'll get back on that.
you folks in Orange City. Yeah.
Shout out to all of you. That's all I got today.
Paul Jansen was a longtime college basketball official. I'm pretty sure he's from Orange City. And he was a huge Chiefs fan. Come to camp every year in his River Falls, and he brought his son. His son, I think, played at Northwestern.
Really?
Yeah. Okay.
Very cool.
OTAs, we're going to get to Chris Shea. You want us to get to Chris Shea.
We're talking about Iowa.
But just, yeah. And Dordt College. The OTAs, Phase 3. First of all, it's a chance to get back together. And I've had so many conversations this week, whether it's 30 seconds to 5 minutes to 10 minutes with guys, just getting reacquainted or meeting the new guys. I had one recently happen, and they're waiting to do their media interview, but it's George Karlaftis, Isaiah Pacheco, and Xavier Worthy. And it was great just to chop it up with those guys. But I said, you three guys, because it was big because Isaiah Pacheco just graduated from Rutgers. And he is so proud, and it's so cool that he did it. But I said, you'll own Rutgers. Rutgers will claim you. But I said, Xavier, you were at Texas 3 years, didn't transfer. Karlaftis stayed at Purdue. These guys it's not going to happen.
Really unique. Doesn't happen anymore because, and I get it, it's no fault of the player's own when they're in college because if you have an opportunity to make more money, I'm not going to fault anyone for that. But how many times is it now where a guy played at like 3 schools in 5 years and they might say they're from a certain place because they graduated from there, but it's like, are you really from there? Like, I think it's cool with some of our guys like Isaiah who 100% could have transferred and gone somewhere else and maybe made more money or something, but stayed at Rutgers, and Rutgers is his place. And he said something that really kind of stuck with me, like he wanted to finish where he started.
That was awesome.
And Xavier is the same way, staying at Texas as long as he did, even though there was a lot of great players there, a lot of competition there. And yeah, with George at Purdue, like for these guys, they have the mindset where they want to finish what they started. And that's a good mindset to have when you're in the NFL because it's really difficult and there's a lot of distractions and a lot of attention. And I don't know, just for me on the outside looking in, for those guys to have that mentality is just one more thing that helps them be as successful as they are.
We're going to do a whole episode on the NIL and how it affects the NFL because it's now real.
Yeah.
But to finish what you start, and I heard that too, and I thought, man, just it's gold. And then he said the block R.
Yeah.
He goes, the block R, which is Rutgers. And I just thought it's so awesome. But when you get to the National Football League, you're not just moving around every year. You finish what you start. And so somewhere there has to be a transition to that feeling. And most of the guys on our team already have it. And I think it's one of the reasons we've been able to win 9 games when it's one possession or down 10 points 3 times in Super Bowls and coming back to win. We talk about winning 100 different ways. That's another way. You finish what you start and you create that every day that you're in the building or have that kind of feeling. Okay. What were your thoughts after at least a snippet of OTA's Phase 3?
Yeah, so the Chiefs, the way they do it is there's 10 OTA practices, right? And they only open some to the media. So most of them are closed where no one's allowed to watch them or report on them. But today was the very first one that was open to the media. So we can't get like too deep into it. Like we are not allowed to talk about position groupings or who's with the first or second team because the coaches would say right now they're rotating everyone. We can't talk about that stuff. What we can talk about is individual performances. And there were some things that really stood out to me today that were impressive. The first being Patrick Mahomes looked awesome. And here's the thing. You might be listening to this and say, well, yeah, obviously he's Patrick Mahomes. I think it's so important not to normalize what he does and the player that he is and the fact that he is here in late May, treating it like an in-season practice. Like, did you get that sense when he was out there? Like, he is treating it like we have a game on Sunday. And that's special.
It is the trait of Patrick Mahomes that is most taken for granted. Not necessarily in the Chiefs' kingdom, but outside. This is one of the best athletes to ever play in any professional sport in the history of our nation, history of the world. And yet, on a overcast OTA Phase 3, he was doing exactly that. But I love what he said in his media session today, too. He said, when you have guys that are already getting fitted for the gold jacket, and he meant Travis Kelce or Chris Jones, and they work the way they do, when I try to impress upon the players, veterans coming in from other teams, young players, rookies, he goes, they'll pay attention.
Yeah.
But it's the way Pat does, who's already going to be in a gold jacket, that approaches it like it's his first day of junior high football practice. I love him for it.
Yeah.
And I just think it's way underrated. So I'm with you. It's exciting to watch him and what he does and how he galvanizes everybody on this team to get them to where he wants them to go.
These practices are voluntary. Nobody has to be here. And if you look around the league, there's a lot of teams and a lot of players that just don't show up to these or they don't take them seriously. Patrick Mahomes takes it seriously. And like you said, if you're any other player on this roster and you see Patrick Mahomes taking it as seriously as he does, you better take it seriously too. So anyway, that's my first thought.
Do you realize all 43 of the defensive players were here today?
I mean, how cool is that?
All 43 defensive players on this roster were here at OTA Phase 3. I'm not exactly sure I've ever seen that. There's always somebody that's got some conflict or injury rehab. All 43 defensive players were on the field.
I mean,
awesome.
If that doesn't fire you up, I don't know what will. So anyway, a few other observations that stuck out to me. I thought Jalen Royals had a great day. And listen, he's a rookie. I'm not trying to start a hype train. I'm just reporting on what I saw here today when the guys were out there in shorts and no pads. And Jalen Royals looked the part. He had a bunch of strong catches. He's really strong through his upper body. Like, he just goes up there and gets the football. And in my opinion, the play of the day took place during, I think it was a 7-on-7 period during red zone, where Mahomes just kind of lifted it up and gave his guy an opportunity to make a play in the back of the end zone. And Royals, in traffic, went up there and got it and got both feet in bounds. Like, that's an awesome play by a rookie. And there's a lot going on for receivers in this offense at this point. Like, they're, trying to keep their head above water, but Royals just consistently was popping today. So he's a guy that stood out. Nico Remigio stood out to me. We know a lot about Nico. Nico just caught a bunch of passes and looked good out there on the practice field. Let's see, who else? Tyquan Thornton was interesting. So Thornton signed with the practice squad last year. You might remember he was kind of a high draft pick of the Patriots a couple years ago. Had a blazing 40-yard dash at the combine, so great speed. He has a long, slender build, so he can go up and get the football too. And this is his opportunity now with the Chiefs with a full offseason training program to try to make this team. And he looked good to me. He made a couple of great catches deep down the sideline during 7-on-7. That was impressive. And then defensively, Omar Norman-Lott, I think, really looks the part. I'll caveat it with, this is not a camp where you can really hit each other, as I keep saying. So it's important to realize that the offensive and defensive lines, it's like limited what you can do because there's no live contact. You're in shorts and shells. So take it with a grain of salt. But at least so far here in early May, Omar Norman-Lott was really impressive, I thought.
What you can see, even though you're not in full pads, you can see first step quickness.
Oh, yeah.
And you can see that in Norman-Lott. Again, we don't want to oversell it, but excited about it.
It's hard not to on May 29th.
And I'll just tag my thoughts this way. One, we talked about how the way Pat works. I think two things here. One is the quick integration of the rookie class. Josh Simmons is clearly way ahead of where I thought he would be, and Coach even mentioned the same thing. I just didn't think he would be that. Don't overreact. We're trying not to overreact.
Well, Coach said he'd be ready for camp for sure.
Which is crazy. We didn't think that. Patella tendon injury.
Yeah.
Rashad Smith, in seeing what he can do in his electric speed, but it seems like he's integrating quickly. Gelati, when you look at Ashton Gelati integrating quickly, you mentioned Norman-Lott. Jalen Royals, we talk about hand size. We do these things metric-wise. We want to measure. What we don't measure is hand strength. And you mentioned his upper body strength. You can see it. But it goes back to he was a basketball point guard. It's why he was under-recruited. You see his hands and his upper body strength, but his ability to snatch footballs and have strength in contested catches is something that we want to see as we move along. So, and the other thing I'll say before we get into Chris is that Spags has the potential to be even more creative. There is more mix and match opportunities. It's just like a chef, and you're giving him like 10 more spices because you and I have both seen it, that Spags can do some damage with this defense.
And this was the number 2 scoring defense in the NFL last year. It's difficult because I'm not taking into account the last game of the season against the Broncos, which actually knocked us down to the number 4 scoring defense in the league. I do not recognize that because that was not real. It was like a preseason game. So this was the number 2 scoring defense in the NFL last year. And I think it's way deeper than it was last season, just based on our initial impressions of watching the guys, watching Noel Williams at corner, watching Omar Norman Lott at defensive tackle, watching Ashton Gelati at edge rusher, watching Jeffrey Bassett at linebacker. Like, we are way deeper, in my opinion, and just the ability to bring some guys back, like Charles Omenihu being back on this team. Like, what a luxury that is to have a pass rusher like that part of this defensive line rotation. So, yeah, I just think this defense is still on the up and up. And I think it's deeper than it was last year. And I think that might be my number one takeaway here from the first week of OTAs is just that our depth is very impressive. And it's a matter of going out there and continuing to improve and get better and grow as a team. But that's my initial takeaway. And I think that should be something that gets people very excited, that the depth of this team, I think, is better than a team last year, which won 15 games in the regular season and went to the Super Bowl.
I'm glad you mentioned Williams and Bassett. Every one of these rookies is ahead of where I thought they would be. And again, it reminds me of 2022. Don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but these guys are on the move in this rookie class. All right, let's get to the matter at hand, and that is a remarkable human being. I really, and in the interview, you're going to hear this. When you study what Chris Shea has done in his life to this point, there are very few humans in our country that can have his LinkedIn page or his resume, and very few in the National Football League. I say it all the time, publicly and privately. The Chiefs have been able to consistently win, 75% win percentage. I show this bar graph when I speak publicly now. The winningest percentage of any team in professional sports, at least MLB and the
NHL, NBA.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. But one of the reasons is the guy we're going to talk about. And he's just fascinating to me. This is one of those, again, send it. Send the link to your friend because they're going to want to listen to this. You don't have to be a super nerd, but this is a giant reason of why the Kansas City Chiefs win consistently. Matt, I'm so excited about this. First time on Defending the Kingdom to get this extraordinary human being with us, and it's Chris Shea, our Senior Vice President for Football Operations and Strategy. Now, Chris, I'm going to intro like this. If people want to look up your LinkedIn page, it will crash their server. This is only my 32nd year in the NFL. There's no one like you. You've coached. You were a team manager. You were an equipment manager on the original 1995 Carolina Panthers, or assistant manager. You're an attorney. You were a corrections officer. Let's see what else. You've worked with 5 other teams other than the Panthers, now with us. You've been with the NFL Management Council, dealing with overtime, looking at reviews and salary cap, and now you do everything for us, including negotiation and salary cap. All of those amazing things, how much of that leads to your success in what you're doing now? Because it will blow the normal human away.
Well, thanks for that very flattering introduction. It's awesome to be on with you guys. I'm glad we can do this today. I've been very fortunate to build what has turned out to be a from the ground up, well-rounded perspective on what goes on in a football organization. And, some of it wasn't necessarily planned out from the beginning to be the path that I took. But now that I'm here, I've been very fortunate to be able to, have all those experiences with some really incredible people and really great places. Like you said, started off, first of all, I started off as a really unathletic high school football player in Massachusetts, then became a student manager at Boston College, thought I wanted to pursue a career in coaching. I coached high school ball. I coached at Harvard, worked with great people there. Some of whom are in the NFL, or really many of whom are in the NFL now or have been, and had an opportunity to get into NFL scouting from, college coaching and recruiting background. And I've weaved, for the last 25 plus, I guess 27 years in and out of scouting, picking up a law degree, learning about the salary cap. The whole time I've been in the NFL, the most important thing that the most fortunate thing that has happened to me is I've had great mentors, Hall of Fame, Super Bowl winning coaches. In college, I worked for Tom Coughlin. In the NFL, I've of course, Coach Reed, one of the greatest coaches of all time. I've also worked for Coach Parcells. So those are three Super Bowl winning coaches there. Coach Peterson in Philadelphia when I was with the Eagles, but also Super Bowl winning executives like Brett and Howie Roseman and Bill Polian when I was with the Panthers years and years ago. So I've had excellent role models and great people to learn from, and being able to have spent time in everything from equipment to coaching to recruiting in college to pro scouting, college scouting, cap, league, teams, all these different things. It allows me to have a really broad perspective. But I feel really blessed that I'm here and I work for someone like Brett who allows me to bring my opinions on a variety of fronts to bear in helping provide him with information as he makes his decisions.
How'd it go as a corrections officer? I'm just curious.
That was incredible. So, my freshman and sophomore years in high school, I worked. My summer job was I worked as a corrections officer. So the full time folks were taking vacation and they needed help in the summer, and the pay was great. It was a little riskier than normal summer jobs, but it was a. I'll put it this way: nothing we do in football is as stressful as that.
Well, want to get back to football. You mentioned
Sure.
Brett Veach. How did you first meet Brett? Because I think you knew Brett before your time with the Chiefs. And also tell me about your working relationship today because you guys work together every single day.
Sure, sure. So, um, you know, Brett and I didn't overlap at the Eagles. Before I joined the Chiefs, I was at the Eagles for 2 seasons, and Brett and Coach Reed and the whole crew that had come over with Coach Reed were already here.
Mm.
But we had a lot of mutual friends who had connected us, and I hadn't worked with him, but I had gotten to know him. Immediately prior to coming here, and had a lot of respect for what our mutual friends thought of him. And then I arrived in 2017 and it just took off from there. We've had a seamless working relationship since. It's fortunately, he's allowed me, as I mentioned earlier, to have an opinion across a broad array of topics. But really, it's about he, as a general manager, knocks down silos and lets all of his staff participate in the team building process, the meetings that we have, and create open dialogue. Worked with Brett and Brant Tillis for a long time. The three of us were obviously negotiating and designing every contract that we've done here since Brett has been the general manager, and that continues now that Brant has moved on, and we continue to work with other great people in the salary cap side of things. Uh, Jack Woloff and Ryan Herman work closely with Brett and I on all matters in football administration. But really, it comes down to Brett creates a seamless relationship with all of his employees. I'm included in that. And we have just ongoing dialogue on a constant basis about, the day's immediate business, but also long-term planning and strategy.
One thing Mitch and I joke around about is we imagine your relationship as if Brett just wants to do stuff and he's like, Chris, find a way to make this work. Like I think about like the Tyrann Mathieu contract years ago and like the Juju Smith-Schuster contract. Like, hey, Chris, I want to sign this guy. Can we make this work? Does that kind of thing happen often?
Yes, but really, what we do, we have Brett has great instincts as a team builder and general manager, and the strategy and philosophy of team building that he and Andy have, Coach Reed. It's been proven to win in the league for decades, and Brett's eye for talent is outstanding. So. When he has somebody that he wants to add, obviously that's something that I have faith in working out. But bigger picture, Brett as a general manager, he may have players he wants to add, but he's always looking at trying to figure out how it fits into the bigger picture of the larger puzzle of how to build a sustainably competitive Super Bowl organization. So while he may be very excited about signing a particular player, he does a good job of taking a step back and seeing the big picture. So we have dialogue about those type of signings all the time, but it's in no way is it me holding him back from doing things. It's just we always talk about the ramifications of decisions we make and how it affects the plan.
Sure.
We blurred your background just because it's like a beautiful mind, the movie. There's all these algorithms behind you. Sort of, that are your law review articles. But it's so exciting for Matt and me to put you in front of the Chiefs Kingdom because you're such a vital part of our winning and winning consistently. But I want to ask you just about trades and pulling
Hmm.
off trades, whether it's draft. We've seen Brett be very aggressive on draft week throughout the draft weekend, but then other trades and how those work and how you can even pull them off.
Sure. Well, so of course, Brett has the ultimate authority to decide whether or not we're trading a player or a pick. But one of the key duties that he's delegated to me is to analyze trades, the market for trades. I work closely with Mark Richards, who oversees our player personnel analytics on analyzing historical trades for either players or draft picks. We prepare that research to put Brett in a position where when we're making decisions in a pressurized environment like the draft, we have an idea of wherever we move in the draft, before we get there, wherever we move, what it should take. Of course, it's fluid, and we build um, various things like with computer interfaces with our information technology department to allow us to fluidly analyze trades as they happen, to update the history of trades as they occur. But ultimately, my role in all trades is to tell Brett whether I think it's fair for what we're trying to accomplish. Many trades, I'm actually negotiating them with the other team, particularly in the draft. But we have a great to get into draft day. We have a great group of executives here at the Chiefs that we're all working on trades together. And ultimately, I may be on the phone with a team. Brett may be on the phone with a team. Also, Mike Bradway, Tim Terry, Ryan Nutt from our front office. All of us may be talking to teams. I have Mark Richards and Ryan Herman with me during the draft to can analyze trades with me. All that information comes to Brett through me, and ultimately I give him a thumbs up, thumbs down on what I think of the trade, and he has to make a decision. And sometimes he'll make a decision that maybe makes sense based on what the draft board looks like, but historically we're taking a little less value, or we're maybe moving around in a way that if you're nitpicky about draft points on some arbitrary chart, might not make sense. But he has a great feel for merging the draft board together with what the history of trades are, and we combine all that information really, really well. And it's a testament to the whole group, not just me. And then, of course, we also have another key part of our football administration group, Jack Waloff, in the draft room, who executes the paperwork of the trades. So when Brett decides we'll be fielding calls for potentially, an hour before we pick. We're always on the phone about exploring what it would cost to go up or go back in all directions with almost every pick that we have. And when we finally pull the trigger, Brett will give the thumbs up and we'll phone it into the league. Usually I'm the one calling it into the NFL and the other team does it too. And then boom, we pick the player and go from there. With player trades, it's a little slower moving, but the same process is basically in place where we have if we are ever involved in another player wanting to acquire one of our players or vice versa, we inform ourselves about what the history of trades looks like at that position, that time of year, the type of, and also involving what type of contract that player has. We'll inform Brett, and sometimes Brett's talking to another general manager. Sometimes I'm talking to my counterparts. Sometimes when Mike Borgonzi was here, he'd be talking to a person at a team, but we all come together and we function as one unit, and it's ultimately Brett, driving the train, so to speak.
It's beyond fascinating. It's awesome.
No, it really is. And including in your job description is the salary cap, obviously,
Mhm.
also very fascinating. I do this for a living. I try to understand it. The salary cap is so confusing, though. Can you explain how you begin to interpret the cap and to manage it for our team?
Sure. Well, one. So, in really broad strokes, the salary cap, of course, is, a collectively bargained restraint on what we can spend on players. But it's a revenue share too. It's the players get a certain percentage of the pie, and the owners retain a certain percentage of the pie to spend on everything else. Um, but within the rules of how you can spend money, uh, it takes a lot of planning and having multiple people, like redundancy, and just making sure that you're accounting for every contract the right way. I don't mean to suggest that it isn't complicated, but it's not that complicated if I can do it. So basically what we do is we're always looking at how contracts count against our cap, and also our cash budgets, because we only have a certain amount of cash that we can spend that Clark provides us every year. And myself and the group that works on football administration here, led by Jack Woloff, who's a mastermind on understanding player markets and keeping track of how everything counts against our cap. Um, we we make sure that we are maintaining for Brett and Clark, a 3-year plan all the time on how our cap looks this year and the following two, so that we understand the ramifications of any contract that we sign or any transaction that we enter into. Having said that, though, once you've worked with it for a while, understanding just how the rules work within the spreadsheet becomes a little bit second nature. But there are a lot of moving parts. It's really just a set of accounting rules, and the however, the big overarching theme that we have here is that decisions about the roster should be driven by football. Yeah, we have a limitation on what we can spend on players and how we spend it, but we try to make sure that the salary cap isn't driving decisions so much as which players we like to keep drives decisions.
It's been apparent now for 13 years how you guys have been proactive with
Mhm.
the cap instead of being reactive, and we've seen teams go right down the tubes because of it. My next question, Chris, deals with the third part of a triangle that fans don't think about, and that's dealing with agents. We know
Mhm.
there's the league, we know there's the teams, but then there's the agents. What about the intricacies and the dynamics of that?
Well, so I'm the principal contract negotiator here, but Brett could be involved in talking to agents during a negotiation. Jack Woloff, who I work with, may be involved in talking to agents. Occasionally, Ryan Herman, who I work with, is part of that group too. Um, and really, what it comes down to is this is a people business, and we're all going to do business over a long period of time and have relationships that extend beyond any one transaction or negotiation. So, dealing with agents is like in any other line of work, dealing with people that you're going to have business dealings with on an ongoing basis. Building mutual respect, and treating people the way you'd want to be treated is a core aspect of how Brett and I go about the business here of negotiating our contracts. We're not always going to agree with the other party in a negotiation, but we try not to be disagreeable or disrespectful. But there can be tough, stressful moments as we try to work out, keeping our players here or signing outsiders who haven't been here previously. But it all comes down to people skills and trying to develop good relationships and develop trust with the other party so that you can reach win-win agreements for everybody.
Do you ever get a break, Chris? Because when you're a team like us that goes to the Super Bowl, hopefully every year, it's free agency and the draft right after that. Then we jump into
Yeah.
mini camp and OTAs and training camp, and it all starts over again. Do you ever get a break?
Well, there's not a lot of work-life balance in this business, but that's what we've chosen. God bless all of our wives and family. But yeah, I mean, we do have some downtime, particularly between mini camp and the start of training camp. Um, we tend to have time out of the office. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily that we have all of our business taken care of, and we may have a contract negotiation that pops up in that period. So we take the downtime where we can get it. But I'd much rather have the problem of us running deep into February each year in the season, in the postseason, and having to deal with that problem of having to quickly turn the table into the off season than having a lot of free time in January and February for sure.
I agree with that.
Yeah, definitely a first world problem.
Yeah.
Final question, Chris, and you've been so kind with your time. I think you're like Brett and Coach, and you sleep half brain at a time like a dolphin. And I think you still coach your daughter's basketball team, or at least some. But I want to ask you, we're sitting here now. When we post this, we'll be on the cusp of going to phase 3 of OTAs.
Mm-hmm.
Then we're going to morph into the mandatory mini camp and then into that plant shutdown, the closest thing the NFL has. Right now, what has to happen, in your opinion, with you and your cohorts from now until the start of training camp that is top of mind, top priority?
Sure. Well, so Brett, myself, all the front office were evaluating the team on the field during the voluntary off-season program. So that's a piece of data that we're taking in just as we think about the future. That's immediate. That's every day. The players are out here, working out even now in as we speak today. We've been through phase 1. Now we're finishing phase 2 and getting into phase 3. From the football administration salary cap side of things, we have some ongoing contract negotiations with players. Without getting into specifics, those include folks like the unsigned rookie draft picks. We have a few of them signed. We don't have all of them signed. So those negotiations, all have different cadences and timetables, and there are different things that are getting negotiated, different maybe holdups in timing with all those things. But from here through training camp, getting those negotiations resolved, whether that's in a new contract or not, remains to be seen. But all that business needs to be taken care of before we get to St. Joe, or before, certainly in some instances, even potentially, we may be getting some of the, say, the drafted rookie contracts done even sooner than that. From a more of an operational perspective, getting past just evaluating the team and contracts, this is a good time for an after-action analysis of free agency, the draft, the season. What can we do better? Brett and the player personnel staff, all of us are working on how did we go about doing our business last year? Where can we improve? That applies not just to how we scout, but how we take in and ingest the scouting information from analytics, the cap, to present to Brett so that we have the best possible plan for free agency and the draft in 2026. So there'll be some of that. But yeah, it's top of mind, just getting what contract business we have done while also planning for the future.
You have been so gracious with your time, and Matt and I are so excited to present you to the kingdom. I always say publicly, we win for 100 reasons, and you're a big part of that. So thanks for coming here and having such an impact and a footprint on the kingdom.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm just one of the several good guys and gals that Brett has working for him, and I'm also lucky enough to work with Coach Reed. So I feel really blessed and fortunate to be a part of the kingdom, and I'm glad to be on this podcast.
We're still going through your resume, but we're on page 7. Just give us some time. So thanks, my friend. Stay on it.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Chris. Everybody, I think, now has an idea, at least a better idea, of who Chris Shea is, what he does, and why he helps us win. I think he's fascinating. I think he's remarkable. I love it that he's ours.
I think it's super cool. I think it's so funny that he was talking about the cap, and he's like, well, once you get a hang of it, it's not that complex. I'm like, Chris, it's pretty complex, and it's a testament to your intelligence and how incredible you are at your job that you can navigate this just like it's second nature. He's amazing, and, there, like you always say, there are so many reasons behind the Chiefs winning over the last several years, and Brett Veach is one of the primary reasons, but I think he would be the first to say that he has amazing people around him that can help him achieve what he wants to do. And Chris is so good at keeping the long-term vision in mind, but saying, hey, we want to add this player, or we want to go get this draft pick or make this trade. How does it fit into what we do? How does it fit into what we want to be doing 3 years from now? And the reason the Chiefs have been able to sustain success for so long, which is the hardest thing to do in the NFL, is because we are never saying it's all about 2025. We're never saying that.
Ever.
2025, we have a chance to win a Super Bowl, and we also have a chance to win a Super Bowl in 2026, and 2027, and 2028 because of this crew and what they're doing and how they're always thinking ahead.
Yeah, he's remarkable. He's outstanding. And again, send it down the line because people need to know the assistant general manager now has got a promotion of the kids. How many people do you know in any endeavor was, I don't know, equipment manager, equipment helper. He played, he coached, he's a lawyer, he worked for the NFL in salary cap compliance, basically, and he's been in personnel, he's coached, and now he's in assistant general manager role, and I'm leaving like 10 things.
Well, did you
out.
mention the corrections officer?
No, he's a corrections officer. Okay, just throw that one in there. If anybody in the league goes, we got that guy too. Hey, was he a corrections officer? Okay, stand down. We have Chris Shea. He's ours. You can't have him.
Well, I think what's so impressive, too, is Coach Reed has the same demeanor where they are so friendly and approachable, but you respect them, you know? And I think his background has lent itself to that kind of vibe around him where you know this guy is brilliant and you want to make sure you do right by him and don't let him down. But at the same time, he is approachable. He is friendly. He asked you how your day is going. Like, very rarely do you find people like that. And we have multiple people like that with that demeanor in positions of power in this building. And I just think it goes a long way in any field, but especially here in the NFL.
Why do we win consistently? 2 of the 100 reasons. OTAs and Chris Shea.